It was the kind of Tuesday that felt like it had already happened before. Cloudy, warm, and thick, with the smell of ocean salt carried from the nearby docks. At Marlowe's diner, the buzz of the neon open sign fought for attention with the lazy ceiling fans, both struggling against the hum of a slow afternoon. Jessica Cole, 26 years old, burnt out, and entirely underwhelmed by life, was halfway through her break. She leaned against the rusting back wall of the diner, apron tossed onto a milk crate, a half-burned cigarette in one hand and a tired iPhone in the other. Inside, she could hear the muffled murmur of regulars, arguing about a baseball game. No. One cared about the sound of forks on plates and the occasional hiss from the flat-top grill. It was her favorite part of the day, not because she loved the quiet, but because she didn't have to pretend to care. She exhaled a cloud of smoke and scrolled past a post about someone's engagement, another about a friend's new baby, and then paused on an ad. Navy veterans wanted, private security, high pay, classified operations. She snorted. Her father would have hated that. No such thing as classified and high-paying in the same sentence. He used to say, unless you're being lied to. She hadn't thought about him much lately. Chief Petty Officer Raymond Cole, U.S. Navy SEAL, killed in action 8 years ago during a botched operation in Helmand Province. No body, just a flag in a box, closed casket. A folded note from someone she'd never met. They told her he was a hero. They told her she should be proud. She was 17. The back door creaked open. Brakes almost up, said Dave, her manager, a squat man with thinning hair and a voice like an old screen door. I've got 4 minutes, Jessica replied. Not looking up, Dave grumbled something about schedules and disappeared. She took one last drag and flicked the cigarette into the alley, watching the ember dance before fading. When she stepped back inside, her eyes took a moment to adjust. Same dull yellow lighting, same chipped booths, same coffee that had tasted like burnt motor oil since the Clinton administration. She picked up her apron and made her way toward the counter, but paused when she saw him. Table 4. Booth by the window. She hadn't seen him come in. He sat alone, upright, sipping a cup of black coffee with the slow, measured precision of someone who'd done it the same way 1,000 times before. No phone, no book, just eyes scanning, always scanning. First the front door, then the counter, then the exits. Subtle but deliberate. His buzz cut was fresh, face clean-shaven, eyes blue but weathered, calm but not relaxed. Jessica didn't recognize him. And in a town like Norfolk, where military faces rotated like bad weather, that meant something. You either stood out or you didn't. And he did just enough. As she tied her apron, her eyes lingered. The way he held himself wasn't casual. It was trained. She knew that posture. She grew up with it. He looked at her then just briefly and nodded. Not a hello, not a flirt. Just a nod like he'd seen her before. Maybe he had. She shrugged it off and moved toward the counter. You gonna take care of table 4 or stare at him all day? Said Tanya, the other waitress on shift. She smirked over her gum. Jessica rolled her eyes. I'm off break in 3 minutes. Tanya shrugged. Your loss. Jessica poured herself a quick soda from behind the counter and leaned on the register, watching from the corner of her eye as Tanya approached the man. They exchanged a few words. He pointed at the menu. No smiles. Just words and a nod. Businesslike. And then it happened. Jessica nearly missed it, but her subconscious DIDN single quotes T.tap. Tap. Pause. Tap. It was so faint, she wasn't sure it had even happened. The man's knuckles had casually tapped the ceramic coffee mug once, then again, then a pause, then a third tap. It was meaningless, harmless, except it wasn't. Her stomach, turned cold, because she knew that pattern. She hadn't heard it in almost a decade, but it was seared into her childhood. Her father used to use it when they played stealth games in the backyard, teaching her how to sneak up on someone or stay hidden. It meant, threat close, do not speak, act normal. At 12, she thought it was silly. At 26, hearing it in a diner made her heart nearly stop. She glanced up. The man didn't look at her. He kept sipping his coffee like nothing happened. Jessica's eyes darted to the front entrance. A man had just walked in. Tall, sunglasses, jacket, too warm for the weather. Hands in his pockets. His stance was casual, but wrong. Too forced. Like he'd studied what casual looked like and was trying too hard to mimic it. She scanned the rest of the room. No one else noticed. No one even looked up. Tanya was busy writing down the order. The cook was shouting about an empty ketchup bottle. Jessica's mind raced. She didn't have time to think. Her body moved on its own. She walked quickly to table 4. The man didn't flinch. She reached out, grabbed the edge of the table, and with one sudden jerk, flipped it over. The plates of food hadn't arrived yet, only the mug shattered, spinning across the floor. People screamed. Someone yelled, "What the hell?" A man in the jacket reached under his coat. Time slowed. Jessica grabbed the steak knife from behind. The counter, the one she'd used that morning to cut through frozen pancakes, lunged. The diner exploded into chaos. A split-second decision. That's all it took. The moment Jessica flipped the table, the entire diner reacted like a bomb had gone off. Screens tore through the air as chairs scraped, silverware clattered, and people ducked instinctively, their minds catching up to a threat they hadn't seen coming. But Jessica wasn't screaming. She was moving fast. The man, in the oversized jacket at the entrance, had his hand inside his coat. Too slow. Jessica launched herself over the corner of the counter, fingers gripping the steak knife she'd left next to the lemon bin earlier. That morning, the blade was short, maybe 5 inches, but sharp. Her hand wrapped around it like muscle memory. She didn't think. Her body moved on instinct, her father's instinct. The man had just pulled a pistol free when she reached him. Jessica hit him hard in the ribs from behind, not with the blade first, but her shoulder. He grunted, staggered, lost grip on the weapon. It fell and skidded beneath booth 6. She followed it up by jamming the butt of the knife into the back of his knee. He buckled, yelling something in a language she didn't catch. "Gun!" Someone shouted. Too late. The gun was already out of reach. The man swung at her blindly, catching her across the cheek. Her vision blurred, white-hot pain exploding in her jaw. She stumbled back, but just as she did, another figure stepped in. The man from table 4. He moved like water efficient, practiced, brutal. In 3 steps he was on the attacker, grabbed the man's arm, twisted, and slammed his head into the nearest wall hard enough to crack plaster. The attacker crumpled to the floor. Silence. Everyone stared. Tanya gasped, hand covering her mouth. The cook had disappeared. The family in booth 2 clutched their kids, wide-eyed and frozen. Jessica's breath came in sharp gasps. Her knees trembled. She gripped the counter to stay upright. The man, the seal, she was sure of it now, knelt to check the attacker's pulse, then slid the man's coat aside. A tactical vest. No ID. No tags. Definitely not local. Then, calmly, he turned to Jessica. "You okay?" he asked, voice like gravel. She blinked. Yeah, I think." "You moved fast." Jessica could barely hear her own voice. "So did you." He nodded once, like that confirmed something. Good. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called it in. "I need you to do something for me," the man said. "What?" "Disappear for 5 minutes. Say nothing. Do nothing." Let me talk to them first. Can you do that? Jessica's mouth opened, but she had no answer. Her head was spinning. He reached into his pocket and handed her something small and metal. A coin? No, an insignia. SEAL Team 6. Jessica nodded slowly. She turned and walked toward the kitchen, eyes still wide. Her hands were shaking. The adrenaline was wearing off fast. As she pushed through the swinging door, she heard the front bell jingle. The cops had arrived. Behind the kitchen door, Jessica slumped to the floor next to a stack of pickle buckets and covered her face with both hands. Her heart thundered against her ribs. Her mouth was dry. Her cheek stung where the guy had hit her, but the pain barely registered. What the hell just happened? She'd just tackled a man with a gun, flipped a table, grabbed a knife. None of that made sense. She wasn't a fighter. She was a waitress. She refilled coffee, memorized regulars' orders, faked smiles for tips. That was her life now. Or at least, it had been. Until the signal. That signal. Tap. Tap. Pause. Tap. It echoed in her mind like a warning bell. Her father had used it all the time when she was younger, drilling it into her head between bedtime stories and backyard missions. It was their code for danger. Don't talk. Act natural. Danger is near. When she was a kid, she thought it was a game. After he died, she buried it. Forgotten until today. She looked down at the insignia still clutched in her palm. SEAL Team 6. This wasn't just some Navy guy. This was Black Ops. Off-the-record stuff. The kind of people who don't leave fingerprints, because officially, they don't exist. She took a deep breath, stood, and looked out through the crack in the kitchen door. The man Rourke, as she would later know him, was speaking with the officers. One of them reached for cuffs, but Rourke lifted the insignia she'd just been holding. The cop froze. A brief conversation followed. Then they backed off. No arrest, no questions. Just a nod. The officers turned and began securing the unconscious man on the floor. Jessica blinked. The man who had tackled the gunman turned, met her eyes across the diner, and gave the smallest of nods. Not a thank you. Not a goodbye, just a nod, like they were now part of the same unspoken page. And then he left, just like that. No badge, no interview, no report, no name. Gone. The rest of the afternoon blurred. The police took statements, nothing specific. She told them she saw a gun. They said she had good instincts. A detective asked if she knew the man who helped. Jessica lied and said no. By the time the dust settled, the body was gone. The gun was gone. And so was any mention of the man from Table 4. Just another weird story in a town full of military ghosts. That night, Jessica sat on her apartment floor in silence. The coin sat on the coffee table in front of her. She stared at it like it was radioactive. She couldn't sleep because her world had tilted, and she knew, deep down, that something wasn't right. The man at Table 4 didn't just give a warning. He gave a test, a code, one only someone trained by someone like her father would recognize. What were the odds? Then she realized something chilling. He hadn't been warning her. He'd been activating her, and she responded without hesitation. Jessica didn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the man's face. Not the SEAL's, the other one. The attacker. The one who'd walked into her sleepy little diner, almost unnoticed, almost invisible, carrying a gun. And an agenda. The man she'd tackled. The man she'd stabbed. Her cheeks still throbbed from the hit he'd landed. Her muscles ached from the adrenaline crash, and her mind kept replaying every moment in a loop. Over and over again. Tap, tap, pause, tap, the flipped table. The gun clattering. The way Rourke, who still hadn't told her his name, moved with deadly precision, It had all happened in less than 15 seconds. But in those 15 seconds, Jessica's life had changed. You moved fast. His voice had echoed in her mind. All night, calm, cold, like nothing had surprised him. Jessica had always thought she'd be the kind of person who froze in a crisis. The kind who panicked or ducked. But when it came down to it, she had launched over that counter, knife in hand, and brought down a man with a gun. She didn't even remember deciding. She just did it. That scared her more than the gun. The next morning, the diner was quieter than usual. Word had spread, even if the official story had somehow been sanitized. A disgruntled customer, they said. An incident quickly handled by nearby military personnel. No mention of Jessica. No mention of a gun. Definitely no mention of Rourke. Jessica showed up anyway. She needed to see the place. To feel that it was real. That she was still real. As she stood behind the counter, wiping down menus that didn't need cleaning. Her eyes kept drifting to table 4. It was clean now. Reset. Like nothing had happened. But she could still feel the weight of it the moment. She'd recognized the signal. The decision to act. She walked over and sat in the booth, hands folded, heart pounding. She didn't know what she was expecting. Another clue? A note? A face she recognized? Nothing. She stayed there until Tanya showed up and made a face. You gonna work today or just haunt that table like a ghost? Jessica gave a tired smile. Little of both. Later that afternoon, she caught her reflection in the diner's window. Same old her messy ponytail, tired eyes, apron stained with ketchup. But something about her felt different. Like the skin didn't quite fit anymore. She had taken a man down. Not because she wanted to, but because she had to. And what scared her most? She didn't regret it, not one bit. 2 hours into her shift, as the lunch crowd was thinning, the front door opened, and Jessica's breath caught in her throat. It wasn't Rourke, but it was someone new. Older. Civilian clothes, but something about him screamed military. Short gray hair. Sharp eyes. No nonsense. He walked in, looked around once, then made a beeline for table 4. Jessica watched from behind the counter. The man didn't order, didn't look at the menu, just sat down and waited. After a moment, she walked over, pen in hand. Coffee? He nodded once. She poured it without a word, but before she could walk away, he said, "You did well." Jessica froze. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said flatly. He gave a half smile. "You do." He reached into his coat and slid a small envelope across the table toward her. "For your eyes only." She stared at it. "Who are you?" she asked. The man stood. "Someone who owed your father a favor." Jessica's heart dropped. Before she could ask anything more, he was gone. The envelope was unmarked, plain. Inside, a photo, creased and grainy. She gasped. Her father, alive, beard graying, eyes harder, but undeniably him. Standing in front of what looked like a warehouse. Stamped in the bottom corner. Istanbul. 2 months ago. Jessica's knees went weak. She sat at table 4, staring at the photo. Her father had been declared Kia, officially dead. But here he was alive, and standing beside Rourke. Next to the photo, a single sticky note. They lied. He didn't die. He went dark, and now you've been activated. She read the words 3 times. Activated. Like she was part of something. Like flipping that table hadn't just been instinct. It had been initiation. Jessica didn't go back to work after that. She told Tanya she wasn't feeling well and left. Back in her apartment, she locked the door, pulled the blinds, and sat cross-legged on the floor with the photo in her lap. If this was real, if her father had gone dark, then everything made sense. The silence, the sealed coffin, the rushed funeral dot, and the man in the diner Rourke he knew. He had been there with her father, which meant showing up at Marlowe's wasn't an accident. It was a test. She'd passed. Now what? Hours passed. The sun set. She didn't move. Then around 9:17 p.m. there was a sound, a faint tap. 3 times. The door dot tap. Tap. Pause. Tap dot her breath, caught in her throat. She stood slowly, crossed the living room, and opened the door dot. No one was there. Just a matchbook on the floor. From Marlowe's diner dot inside, a number scribbled in small, shaky handwriting colon 14.3.7. She stared at it. That combination. That number. She'd seen it before years ago. Her father's handwriting. He used to say, "If you ever see those numbers, together, run. Don't ask questions. Just go. It means something's coming." She closed the door. Heart pounding. Everything was shifting. Fast. Jessica didn't sleep that night either. But this time, it wasn't fear keeping her awake. It was readiness. By morning, Jessica had the entire apartment torn apart. The matchbook sat on the table like a landmine, its 3-digit code burning in her brain. 14.37. The numbers weren't coordinates. Not a phone number. Not a date. She'd tried every combination, every trick she could remember her father teaching her. Still, nothing. All she knew for sure was this. She was being watched. The man at table 4 hadn't shown up by accident. Neither had the man with the envelope. Someone, maybe multiple someones, were pulling her into something big. And the worst part? She didn't even know which side she was on. Jessica didn't go to the diner that day. Around 10 a.m. She grabbed her hoodie, stuffed the matchbook and envelope in her backpack, and headed out. She walked aimlessly for a while past the naval yard, past the rusted old ships, past the military museum where tourists took photos of submarines they didn't understand. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She stared at it, let it ring. Then stopped. If they were watching, they'd know where she was anyway. She answered. Jessica Cole? Her fingers curled around the phone. Who's asking? There was a pause. Then, Lieutenant Commander Rourke. We met at the diner. Her mouth went dry. How did you get this number? I didn't. You're not hard to find if you know what you're looking for. She stayed silent. I need to talk to you, he said. Somewhere private. Why? Because they'll come for you if I don't explain what you're part of. She hesitated, then gave the name of a coffee shop 2 neighborhoods away. Public, loud, but quiet enough to talk. She arrived 20 minutes later. Rourke was already there. He wore civilian clothes now, dark jeans, a jacket, nothing flashy. But there was no hiding his bearing. He looked like the kind of man who could dismantle a room with a spoon and never break a sweat. Jessica slid into the booth across from him. You gave me a signal, she said quietly. He nodded. And you recognized it, which means I was right about you. Right about what? He sipped his coffee. Your father wasn't just a SEAL. He was part of a classified operation called Phantom Tide. When the mission went sideways, he and I disappeared from official records. They said we died. That's how the agency works. If the mission's compromised, the people get erased. Jessica stared at him. So you're telling me my father faked his death? He didn't fake it. It was faked for him. She leaned in. Is he alive? Rourke nodded. Yes. Tears stung her eyes, but she blinked them away. Then where is he? That's the problem, Rourke said. He's not the man you remember. Something changed. The mission broke him. He's operating independently now. He thinks he's still serving the country, but he's making enemies on both sides. And if you don't help me reach him, someone else will. And they won't be as kind. Jessica's blood ran cold. He's in danger? Rourke looked her in the eyes. We are. Back at her apartment, Jessica replayed the conversation again. And again, not her father. Alive, operating in the shadows. Doing what? Smuggling weapons? Sabotaging foreign networks? Fighting ghosts no one else could see? Or had he become one himself? The man who raised her had always been strict but kind, funny in a dry military way. He taught her how to spot threats, how to read a room, how to escape a zip tie with a paperclip. He never treated her like a kid, always like someone he was preparing. Was this why? Had he always known she'd be dragged into this someday? That night, unable to sleep, she pulled out the photo again. Her father, gray-bearded, alive, but it wasn't. The photo that sent a chill down her spine. It was what she noticed behind him. On a crate in the background, faintly visible, but there was a painted symbol. 3 vertical lines inside a circle. She recognized it. Russian Private Arms Consortium. Velkin Group. They'd been blacklisted for selling weapons to rogue nations. Her father was standing next to a crate of illegal arms. With Rourke, Jessica marched back to the diner the next morning. She had questions, and she needed answers. But the moment she walked through the front door, she knew something was wrong. The diner was open. Patrons were eating. Tanya was working. But table 4 was empty, and no one remembered what had happened. Tanya stared at her blankly. What are you talking about? The guy. The one who got tackled. The gun. The cops. 2 days ago. Tanya frowned. Jess, are you okay? You called the police. I never did. Rourke. The man at table 4. Table 4 was empty that whole shift. Jessica's stomach turned to ice. She walked to the back, where the attacker had hit the wall. The dent in the plaster was gone. Fresh paint, newly patched. The manager, Dave, caught her looking. We had a plumbing leak. Had to do some repairs. But there had been no plumbing leak. The place had been scrubbed, cleaned, erased. Even the cops had no record. She checked online. No 911 call logs matched her location. It was like it never happened. Jessica stood in the alley behind the diner, where she'd taken her break just days ago. She lit a cigarette with trembling hands. This wasn't just a cover-up. This was full-on containment, and she was in the middle of it. No turning back now. As she exhaled a stream of smoke, a car passed slowly behind her. She didn't recognize it. Didn't have to. She was being watched. And the matchbook in her bag? She was starting to think it wasn't a warning. It was a timer. Jessica stood frozen in her apartment, the rain still dripping from her coat, the flash drive in her hand like it was radioactive. She had no idea what she'd just stolen, only that it had been hidden in a place only she would have found. A dead drop in a fake salt shaker. At a table chosen by a seal, table 4. She plugged the flash drive into her laptop, adrenaline pulsing in her ears. The screen flickered to life. No menu, no folders, just a single encrypted file with a name she recognized immediately. Phantom Tide _14.3.7.WMV. Her pulse spiked. She clicked the video. It opened with a black screen. A timestamp flickered in. The corner. Istanbul, March 17, 2:41. The footage was grainy, shot from a static surveillance camera, maybe body cam or drone. The video shook slightly, then stabilized, focused on what looked like an old warehouse near a dockyard. Men stood at the center of the screen. One was unmistakable. Her father. Jessica's breath hitched. It was him. Beard, military gear. Eyes fierce but tired. The second man was unfamiliar, speaking into a comms device. Several crates lined the warehouse. Behind them, handcuffed civilians 3. Maybe 4 sat on the floor, guarded by 2 armed operatives in black. Then her father spoke. Clear, urgent. You weren't supposed to bring them here. This wasn't the deal. The other man snapped back. Orders changed. Their leverage. Now, this isn't why we started Phantom Tide. That was the moment the screen froze. Jessica stared at the paused frame. Her father had just confirmed it. He was part of something called Phantom Tide. Something gone wrong. She barely had time to process when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She let it ring. Then the burner phone Rourke had left in her locker at the diner buzzed too. She answered that one. A voice, scrambled and male, came through. Don't go back to work. They know who you are. Jessica swallowed. Who is this? You need to move, now. You were followed. Her heart raced. Who followed me? A pause. Then, Phantom Tide has eyes everywhere. But they don't know what's on the drive. Yet, Jessica stiffened. Who are you? I'm the reason your father's still alive. For now. But if you stay in that apartment another hour, you won't be. Then the call ended. Jessica scrambled to pack. She grabbed the laptop, the drive, her father's notebook, cash from the emergency envelope taped behind the heater, and the burner. Phone. She left everything else down the fire escape. Out the alley. Into a bus headed north. As she sat in the back, her mind whirled. Who was watching her? Why now? And what exactly was Phantom Tide? The safe house was a borrowed apartment above a closed hardware store in a sleepy coastal town. Rourke had arranged it, along with a duffel bag that awaited her in the bathroom. Burner phones, a fake ID, and a gun. Jessica didn't sleep that night. Instead, she replayed the video over and over, pausing each time her father's face appeared. There were words in the background, code names. Boxes labeled 14.3.7. Civilians used as leverage. And the phrase that made her skin crawl. Initiate shadow command. The screen flashed briefly to a manifestic, to a crate blurred but partially legible. Transport, black sky. Authorization, PH.TDLV7. Priority, ultra black. Ultra-black. She knew from her dad's old mutterings. That was clearance above top secret. A level that technically didn't exist. The next morning, a knock at the door. Jessica pulled the gun from under her jacket and stepped slowly toward the door. Who is it? She called. A pause. Then, it's me. Rourke. He looked like hell. Clothes rumpled, eyes shadowed, a fresh cut above his eyebrow. I saw the leak, he said, stepping inside. You uploaded part of the footage? She nodded. Just enough to get attention. Not the part that shows hostages. Not his face. Good, he muttered. If the whole file gets out now, it'll spook everyone. They'll bury the truth before it surfaces. Jessica set the laptop on the table. Tell me the truth, she said. All of it. What is Phantom Tide? And why was my father in that warehouse? Rourke. Sut, rubbing his face. It started as a deep cover intelligence program in 2009. The idea was to track illegal arms sales and infiltrate terror networks before attacks happened. Sounds noble, she said. It was, until it wasn't. He looked at her, eyes hard. Somewhere along the way, it became something else. Not about stopping terror, about controlling chaos. Creating it even, to justify funding, to influence elections, to gain leverage. Jessica shook her head. And my father was part of that? He didn't know what it would become? None of us did. When he found out, he tried to expose it. Why didn't he? Because they turned on him, tried to erase him. He barely escaped. I helped him fake his death and go dark. Jessica's voice cracked. Is he still alive? Rourke nodded. Last I heard, he was trying to gather enough evidence to blow the whole operation open. She looked at the flash drive. Then we finish what he started. Rourke opened his backpack and pulled out a folder. These are safe houses. Dead drops, names of people who might still be loyal, but trust no one, not even me. Jessica raised an eyebrow. He smiled faintly. Especially me. She took the folder. Where? Do we start? Rourke pointed to one name on the list. Keller, SEAL Commander, retired. If anyone can confirm the original mission, it's him. Where is he? Off-grid in the Rockies, living under a false name. Jessica grabbed her coat. I'll go tonight. You'll need backup. She shook her head. I need answers more. That night, Jessica stood at the edge of the docks where the waves rolled in quietly. The cold bit at her fingers, but she barely noticed. Her thoughts churned like the sea. Phantom Tide was bigger than she imagined. Not just a bad mission. Secret war run from the shadows. And her father was caught in the middle. Now so was she. She looked down at her reflection in the dark water. Not just a waitress. Not anymore. She was a daughter with a target on her back. And a reckoning to deliver. Tomorrow. She would chase ghosts in the mountains. But tonight, she made a vow to herself. She wasn't running. She was hunting. Jessica stood on the sidewalk across from Marlowe's diner for nearly 10 minutes before crossing the street. Something inside her told her not to go back. But something stronger, curiosity, fear, obligation, forced her forward. The place had become more than just a greasy little diner with stale coffee and limp pancakes. It was the last place her life had made sense. She pushed open the door. The familiar jingle of the entrance bell rang above her head, cheerful and sharp, too sharp. It made her wince. Everything looked normal, like it had before. The chairs were all in place, the counter spotless, the floor mopped. The smell of fried eggs and old grease still hung in the air. But there was something off in the way the customers chatted. Too relaxed, too unaware. It was like no one here had ever been afraid for their lives. Like no one remembered what had happened just days ago. Jessica walked to the counter. Tanya was refilling the ketchup bottles. Well, look who decided to show up, she said casually. Jessica gave her a long stare. You feeling all right? Tanya raised an eyebrow. I should be asking you that. You bailed mid-shift. Haven't called. You in some kind of trouble? I'm talking about the guy, Jessica said, leaning closer. The gunman. From the other day. Tanya blinked, confused. Gunman? Jessica kept her voice low. The guy who came in with the jacket. The one who pulled a weapon. The one I tackled. You screamed. Remember? Tanya gave a half laugh. What are you talking about? That never happened. Jessica's heart started thudding. You don't remember the cops showing up? There were no cops, Jess. Jessica's hands clenched into fists on the counter. You saw the guy. You served the other man table 4. The one who gave me the signal. Table 4? Tanya looked past her. No one sat at table 4 all week. Jessica turned. Table 4 sat empty, untouched, like a showroom piece. But she remembered the crash, the flipped table, the coffee mug rolling across the floor, blood on the linoleum, her bruised knuckles. She turned back to Tanya. You seriously don't remember any of it? Tanya just looked uncomfortable now. Are you okay? Jessica said nothing. She grabbed her bag and walked out, pushing the door hard enough to make the bell jingle twice. Back in her car, Jessica sat still, hands on the steering wheel, eyes unfocused. The diner's neon sign buzzed in her rearview mirror. They wiped it. The memory hadn't just been suppressed. It had been erased. Anyone who saw what happened either didn't remember or had been made to forget. She thought back to Rourke's voice. They'll come for you if I don't explain. Who were they? Who had the power to wipe entire incidents from the memory of witnesses? Local law enforcement? No chance. This was deeper, darker. Government. Maybe, but not the kind that worked with press releases and ID badges. She needed proof. Something real. She reached into her glove box and pulled out the envelope, again the surveillance photo of her father. Standing beside Rourke, crates marked with Russian sigils stacked in the background, and behind him, Jessica zoomed in with her phone camera. There was a faint symbol drawn on the concrete. Wall.14.3.7. The same code from the matchbook. She hadn't imagined it. Jessica parked her car 3 blocks from her apartment, walking the rest of the way, just in case someone was tracking her. She ditched her phone an hour earlier, removed the battery, left it behind a dumpster at a gas station. She felt paranoid. But every minute, the paranoia seemed more like preparation. At home, she dragged her father's old footlocker from the closet. She hadn't opened it since the funeral. It was heavy, dense with old gear, patches, dusty metals, and a scent of oil and steel. Inside, beneath a stack of old Navy SEAL memorabilia, she found it. A slim black notebook with an elastic band holding. It shut. She opened it. Most of it was filled with tactical scribbles, coordinates, call signs, acronyms she didn't understand. But halfway through, she found a page with a single line written in his tight, angled handwriting. If the numbers come back, don't stay. Don't ask. Don't trust. Then beneath it, in smaller print, if you're reading this, Jess, I'm already in too deep. Her chest tightened. The words were old, written in desperation. Not meant for her yet, but somehow always meant for her. A chill ran down her spine. She flipped the page. One more scribble. Phantom Tide is not what we thought it was. The name echoed in her mind. She remembered Rourke telling her it was a rogue mission, that her father had vanished after things went wrong. But now, her father's note told a different story. Phantom Tide wasn't just some mission gone bad. It was a lie. A trap, or worse, a cover for something far more dangerous. Her father had known, and he had tried to leave breadcrumbs. She stared at the scribbled words until her eyes burned. Then something in her gut told her to check the back cover. Inside, taped under a loose seam of leather, was a flash drive. Small, old, obvious only if you were looking for it. Jessica didn't hesitate. She plugged it into her laptop, closed the blinds, and waited. The drive contained 3 files. 2 were corrupted. The third, labeled Kraken_watch, opened. It was a video, grainy footage of a warehouse, Istanbul. A handheld camera, shaky, panned across stacked crates. Armed guards. A loading bay. Then the camera focused on 2 men in the distance. One was her father, the other taller. In a black jacket was Rourke. Jessica leaned forward, heart pounding. The 2 men were speaking, though the audio was low. Then suddenly, her father shoved Rourke backward, angry. Heated, he pointed toward a door, and for a moment, the camera zoomed inside. The room were 5 people. Hooded, bound. Hostages. The video ended. There. Jessica's hand flew to her mouth. Father hadn't just disappeared. He was involved in something else entirely. Not rescue, not security. Abductions. Her father hadn't gone rogue. He'd gone off the map. And now she had the proof. Someone knocked. 3 times. Tap. Tap. Jessica's blood turned to ice. The knock echoed like a rifle crack in the silence of her apartment. 3 knocks. Tap. Tap. Pause. Tap. It wasn't just random. It was deliberate. A signal. Jessica's first instinct was to grab the pistol her father had left hidden under the floorboard. But when she reached for it, her hand trembled. Her laptop screen still glowed with the paused image of her father and Rourke, standing in that Istanbul warehouse, arguing. Hostages. Guns. Black ops. She didn't move. The knock came. Again, this time softer. Jessica. A familiar voice called through the door. It's me, Rourke. she didn't relax. If anything, her heart raced faster. She crossed to the door and pressed her eye to the PEEPHOL. It was him. He was alone. No backup. No visible weapon. Still, she didn't open the door. I saw the video, she said through the door. A pause. I figured you would, Rourke replied. You lied to me. I never lied, he said calmly. I just didn't tell you everything. Jessica unlocked the deadbolt, but only halfway. She opened the door enough to speak, but kept the chain latched. Her eyes were sharp, alert. Start talking. All of it, Rourke sighed, rubbed the back of his neck. Phantom Tide wasn't just a mission. It was a rogue initiative. Black budget, off the books, and so classified that even the Pentagon didn't fully understand it. We weren't sent overseas to protect civilians or recover stolen tech. We were building something. A network. A network of what? She asked coldly. Assets, people, leverage, he said. Information and control. We were told we were doing it to protect national interests. To stop foreign influence. Prevent terrorism before it reached American soil. Jessica narrowed her eyes. But it wasn't about protection, was it? No, he admitted. It became about power. And your father figured it out first. He tried to expose it. Jessica's breath caught. Then why was he in that video? With hostages? Because he went too deep. He tried to pull one last move, smuggle those people out. Whistleblowers. Journalists. A diplomat's son. He thought he could save them and use them to blow the whole thing open. Did he? Rourke looked down. I don't know. We got separated. I haven't seen him since. That photo I gave you, the one in the envelope, was the last time he was spotted. After that, he vanished. Jessica was silent, torn between rage and fear. You've been looking for him, she said. He nodded. Because if I don't find him, the people we used to work for will. Jessica let him in, only because she knew keeping him out wouldn't stop what was coming. Rourke paced her apartment like a man used to reading rooms for escape routes. His eyes darted toward the window, then to the laptop screen still open with the paused surveillance video. You figured out the numbers, he said, double quotes, 14.3.7. She replied. It's the ID of the shipping container in the video. The crates, he gave a tight nod. It was a trail he left, hoping you or someone would find it. Jessica opened her father's notebook and pointed to the scrawled message. If the numbers come back, don't stay. Don't ask. Don't trust. Rourke looked at the page, then back at her. Your dad wasn't paranoid. He knew what kind of people were involved in Phantom Tide. People who don't allow loose ends. Jessica's eyes narrowed. And I'm? A loose end. Not yet, he said. But if you keep digging, you will be. They left the apartment just before midnight. Jessica packed the notebook, the flash drive, and a burner phone Rourke gave her. They moved quietly, sticking to side streets, weaving through the city like ghosts dotted a storage yard near the docks. Rourke led her to a shipping container locked behind chain-link fencing. The number, 14.3.7. Double quotes. Your father sent this container to a false front, Rourke said, unlocking the gate. A private storage firm in your name. He must have planned this before he disappeared. The container creaked open. Inside were files, boxes, drives, photos, weapons, dossiers with redacted names, and blacked out pages. Jessica picked one up. Inside were records from diplomatic briefings, transcripts of phone calls, surveillance images of high-ranking government officials, American officials, meeting with foreign operatives. This is, she whispered, stunned. This is national security level classified. This, Rourke said, is evidence of a shadow operation spanning 3 administrations. Your father wanted you to have this if anything happened to him. Jessica turned furious. Why me? I'm a waitress. No, you're not, Rourke said softly. You're the daughter of a man who trained you for something bigger. He didn't raise you with escape drills and dead drops for nothing. She stared at him, heart racing. He trained you for this day. The truth came together like falling dominoes. Phantom Tide hadn't just created an off-the-books team. It had become a private intelligence network. One that operated without oversight, without rules. Her father had been part of it. Until he tried to blow the whistle. And now, Jessica was holding the key to burning the whole thing down. They left the container at dawn. The sun broke over the harbor, painting the water gold, but Jessica felt no warmth. Rourke handed her a folder. This is everything you need to vanish. Why? Because if you want to survive this, you need to disappear. For good. Jessica held the passport, the IDs, the new name. Claire Daniels. This was never supposed to be my fight, she whispered. Rourke looked at her. But it is. And you're the only one left who can finish it. They parted ways in an alley behind a bus terminal. Rourke gave her a long look. If you decide to go public, do it fast. They'll be watching every outlet, every journalist, every plane ticket. You've got one shot. Jessica nodded. He hesitated and added, I hope he's alive, Jess. If he's not. Finish what he started. He disappeared into the morning crowd. Jessica stood alone, folder in hand, life in pieces. She opened the passport one more time. The new name stared back at her. Claire Daniels. She could run, vanish, take the evidence, bury it somewhere far away, live a new life, forget everything. But she couldn't forget. Her father had risked everything, given everything, and the ghosts of Phantom Tide were still out there. That night, Jessica sat in a cheap motel room under a fake name, watching the files upload to a secure journalist server. Overseas, the story would leak. Names would fall, and the world would finally see the Aussie truth. The file upload bar inched toward completion, glowing green in the dark motel room like a lifeline. Jessica sat frozen in front of her laptop, knees pulled to her chest, watching the seconds count down. 0.94%, 97%, 99%. Upload complete. She exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. The evidence, the surveillance footage, the transcripts, the dossiers, and the operational files of Phantom Tide was now securely in the hands of the one journalist. Her father had scribbled in his notes, Matteo Rivas, a war correspondent in Europe, independent, clean, and most importantly, untouchable. Her job should have been done, but deep in her chest she knew something wasn't finished. The silence that followed was unnerving. She expected helicopters, sirens, kicks at the door. Instead, nothing. Not yet. She shut the laptop, turned off every light, and waited. At sunrise, Jessica changed locations again, this time a remote gas station cafe 2 towns over. She left the burner phone on a Greyhound bus heading west and carried only cash and her father's notebook. With each passing hour, she checked every news outlet, blog, and broadcast channel. By noon, it broke. The first story appeared on a European independent site. Leaked files reveal rogue use covert program Phantom Tide involved in global abductions, torture, and political manipulation. Then others picked it up. CNN, Reuters, Al Jazeera. By nightfall, hashtag Phantom Tide was trending globally. She saw the first photo of her father splashed across the screen. A younger image, back when he still wore the uniform. Headlines claimed he'd been missing since 2014. Speculations ran wild. Some called him a hero. Others branded him a traitor. Jessica stayed in the shadows. Every news van, Every article, every talking head pulled the spotlight further from her, and she let it happen. Because the less they saw her, the longer she had to find him. She traced the last known movements of her father using data from the ADA flash drive. The Istanbul video timestamped a location Port Evra, but the real clue came from a buried metadata file. Coordinates deep in the Balkans, a cabin, a safe house, not U.S. soil. Off the radar, she booked a last-minute cargo flight, under a false identity. With no passport checks and the help of Rourke's contacts, she arrived 3 days later, hiking the final 6 miles to the coordinates on foot. Snow had started to fall. The cabin was half buried beneath pine trees, boarded up and silent. She knocked once, twice, then whispered, 4-1, Lima, Victor 2. Her father's old call and response code. Silence. Then a voice from inside. Echo, 7, Tango. The door creaked open. He looked older, thinner, a beard, a limp, and eyes that had seen too much. But it was him, her father. He didn't speak at first, just stared. His jaw clenched. Then slowly, carefully, he stepped forward. Jessica's breath caught as he pulled her into a trembling hug. I didn't know if you were alive, she whispered. I wasn't, he murmured. Not until now. They talked through the night. He explained everything. How he had tried to blow the whistle from the inside. How Rourke had helped fake his disappearance when the mission turned on him. How Phantom Tide's leadership, not foreign enemies, had become the true threat. But they weren't just operating above the law, her father said. They were the law in places no one dared to look. They had clearance, funding, immunity. And they used it to remake the world in secret. Jessica shook her head. I released the files. People know now. He gave a grim smile. It's a start, but they'll come for us. I know. He handed her a worn leather pouch. Inside were 3 passports, another burner phone, and a satellite tracker. She looked up at him. You want me to run? I want you to live. She closed the pouch. I didn't come this far to run. Back in the U.S., the world was unraveling. High-level resignations shook Washington. The Defense Secretary issued a public statement disavowing Phantom Tide. Congress launched hearings. Some officials denied knowing anything. Others vanished overnight. But not all were afraid. Some wanted revenge, and they were closing in. 2 weeks. Later, Jessica and her father made their way to a contact in Budapest, someone who could offer new identities and clean travel routes. But the meeting was a trap. Jessica sensed it before her father did. The man at the cafe wore a suit, but his posture was all wrong. Military, rigid, a tell only someone raised by a seal would notice. When the coffee cup was set down without a sip, she knew. She whispered, left exit, now. They bolted just as the agents closed in. A shot cracked through the air. Her father tackled her into a market stall. Crates exploded behind them. People screamed. They ran. She'd never moved so fast. Through alleys. Across rooftops. Bullets behind. Them. Her father stumbled. Blood. She dragged him into a drainage tunnel, sealing the entrance behind them. The wound wasn't fatal, but close. They holed up in an abandoned rail car as she treated it with trembling hands. You should leave me, he groaned. You can still make it out. Shut up, she said. You didn't raise a quitter. He smiled faintly, eyes closing. You finished what I couldn't. She gripped his hand. We're finishing it together. The next morning, a miracle. A journalist, the same one who broke the story, released a second wave of evidence. This time with coordinates, names, photos. Every surviving member of Phantom Tide's leadership was now exposed. 2 were arrested in Geneva. 1 was found dead in a hotel room in London. The rest vanished. and the shadow that had loomed over Jessica's. Life began to lift. Weeks passed. Jessica and her father resurfaced quietly in a small village outside Lisbon. Safe, for now. She took work under an alias, and he began to write, documenting every secret, every lie, and every mission they had buried for years. One night, as they watched the waves roll in, he turned to her. "You could have walked away," she shrugged. "You never taught me how." He laughed, wincing from the healing wound. "You're more dangerous than I ever was." "No," she said. "I'm just more stubborn." They sat in silence for a moment. "Jess," he said slowly, "do you regret it?" She looked at the ocean, then at the stars. "I didn't ask for this life, but I didn't run from it either." He nodded, double quotes, "And if they come again?" She smiled. "Then they'll see what a waitress who flips tables is really capable of." The end.